Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a Wild Woman podcast. I have a returning guest today, a returning champion, I've heard that said, uh, on another podcast. But thank you for being here. Firstly, I just want to say that I mentioned it on previous episodes that I just hit 100 episodes a few weeks ago, and it's down to all the beautiful people who have joined along the way. It's been nearly 2 years, and I'm just very excited for where the podcast is going. I've mentioned before that I just feel it's growing into something greater. It's just a passion, it's a calling. I hope a community, I hope a safe space where I think part of my intention is to to create that space, safe space where we can go a little bit deeper with some of the guests in maybe have specific events and where we all get to share and grow and heal and inspire each other. So it's a part of where I want to take the podcast. So thank you. I also want to say just please like, subscribe, share if you do. It really, really helps. And also, if you feel so called, I have a little buy me a coffee button. And if it does inspire you, please do support the work that I do if you feel called. So I just want to get that out of the way. So without further ado, my returning guest is Giada Labrecque. I've had a lot of feedback since I last spoke to Giada, and I was just saying before, I thought it was about a year ago, but it's actually only last February, and that is sort of, my God, time. It's just really speeded up. And since then, I've had a session. We've had a few. We'll talk about it with. I've had an actual one-on-one session with Jada, and I've been part of some of her journey events that she's now running. So, Jada is a massage therapist, firstly, I should say, first and foremost, but has a lot of other modalities. Um, so welcome, Jada. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How are
Thank you.
you?
Congratulations on your 100 episodes. That is such an accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I thought I was going to do this big sort of, I don't know what. And then I just thought, no, it was just really nice to just acknowledge it. I will say, because I'll just say this for anyone else who's listening, that um, the listeners, when I started this first and I said I felt guided to it, I never intended. It's really been a teacher to me about being just showing up, being present, listening, using my voice, which I've always found difficult. And I said, I read somewhere, if you make it past 7 episodes, you have to get to 7 episodes. That's really hard. So I just said, I'm going to make it to 7 episodes. And what happened was that fire was fed along the way. And I think that's the key. Just it was a little bubbling up in me. It wasn't like, here's a signpost, you're going to get there. And I think we were talking about this actually just before we started recording, this living in the present moment and what shows up. And I loved, will you mention it? Because it's just now that we're talking about it. You had a lovely definition of the fifth dimension. Um,
I don't know if I would call it a definition. It was just maybe
okay.
something I think I had heard somebody say it and it really resonated with me. And so that's why I wanted to share it. And it's not my original thought by any means, but it was that the fifth dimension is actually the present moment. And so, all these other dimensions are kind of like, the past, the future, time, the outside world, our connection to source, these kinds of things. And then the fifth dimension just brings it all right into the center to bring you in the here and now, which is the place, the seat where you can, do anything from. But if we are outside of our body, or if we are disconnected, if we are, what's the word, when we dissociate, we aren't in the present moment. If we're scrolling through our phone, we're kind of trapped in these other places and we can't really do much with our lives from there. But from the present moment, from that fifth dimensional state, it's like you're standing at that precipice saying, okay, where am I going next? What am I doing next? Right?
That's, oh my God, I get such chills when you say that. That's just so exciting. I often think, why don't we learn that? Why don't you, this isn't this taught in school? When you think of how distracted, I mean, and it's such a peeling back. I suppose it'll bring us a bit into your work, but it feels like for me, all of this has been such a peeling back. All the healing work has been an unlayering of all of this, so I can be present. Is that, it sort of seems to sum it up. I could never, ever have stood in the present moment, precipicing what's next, and really be in my body. And you can only, can't you, know what's next by feeling it in your body, because where else it's not here. It's
Right.
like, what's the energy that's rising up? So I suppose that maybe brings me to with your work, is that how do you see your work fitting into just what you've said?
Okay, well, I am definitely somebody who has a lot of ideas, and I like to throw it all at the wall to see what sticks. Is that a very present thing to do? I don't know. I think it's like definitely an abundant thing. Is it distracted? I don't know, because like I can't focus on the one thing. I have to have seven plates spinning all the time. For some reason, that's when I feel alive, is when I have multiple cooks in the kitchen. Do you know?
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I think it all kind of has the same common thread or the same base note, which is that I want to help people overcome. I want people to help people heal from within, to be able to become present, to be able to look at their pain in a held and safe place and know that they're not alone in it. And so that is the baseline to everything that I'm doing. And I think empowerment is also a big part of what I do, because I've been so frustrated with a lot of the systems out there that take your power away. They take your autonomy away and say, you need to come to us for the answers. Whereas I definitely 100% believe in empowering my clients or people with the information to then be able to do it themselves. And then once they can do it themselves, really, it's kind of like now there's no excuses. But at the same time, they're not dependent on other people's schedules, or they're not worried about if they have the finances and stuff like this, because they can, at the end of the day, work on themselves. Um,
Mm.
so I'm sure I could expand more into that if you'd like me to, but
Yeah,
that's
but no, I
how I
like.
begin to answer that.
Yeah. What brought you to that? I mean, I know we touched on this. What I was really taken by, and our many people said it to me in the the podcast we did. So what I meant to say at the beginning, if you haven't seen Jada's first interview with me, it's here on the channel. I'm going to link it below. I would recommend that you do go back and listen or watch, because you shared a lot of your personal story there, and I think that's always very inspiring to others to see what we can come through, and that we're not alone often in what we're going through, and people who have found their way through something out the other side, like you said, through their pain into their power, maybe can help you do that too. We can all do this. We can all do this. We just need each other. But you talked about that you felt like you had been grieving all your life. I found that so moving when you said it. How does that sort of fit into the work you do? Is that part of why you do what you do?
I think it is, like, at the end of the day, it's the main reason I do what I do, is because I know what it's like to feel so alone and to feel so much pain, and to, sorry, um, to feel abandoned, to feel rejected, to feel not enough, like it is this um common theme throughout my entire life, is to go through so much struggle, and I never understood why. Like, why me? Why why do I have a mother that doesn't want me? Why do I have friends who don't support me? Why do I have my closest friend dying when I was 7? Um, and I had to process all of that alone, because there wasn't somebody there. to hold that space for me to explain what was happening. And so I feel like that was the massive inspiration behind creating a space that you was holding space for anybody going through anything painful. Because I had somebody say it to me recently that she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry that I have to dump this trauma on you." And it was like, but it's not anything new to me. There's so many things that people say to me that I'm like, yeah, I've been there. I understand what you're going through. So you're not alone in this. And I never had somebody to say that. I never had somebody to say, I understand your pain. Um, so like I've also had very beautiful things happen in my life, okay? It's like I'm not just a victim to everything in every circumstance. But like I went to a session recently and she asked me about when I was 12 years old, okay? And when I was 12 years old, I was being bullied to the point where people were making fake accounts pretending to be me and ruining my relationships with everybody else around me. So to the point where people thought I was very strange and didn't want to talk to me. These people that would bully me, they would bully other people as well and tell everybody to pretend like I didn't exist, that I was invisible. I had my mother, who was more intent on punishing me than doing anything else. She would come from any kind of any issue. What it boiled down to was, the day I had you is the day I lost my husband. Like it was like these kinds of like, you're not good enough. You're not what I wanted. You deserve to be abandoned, rejected, ostracized. Um, I feel like I'm just trauma dumping now.
Oh,
It's,
wow.
you know, I had, an uncle that was really inappropriate and nobody would ever say anything. And then finally, when I became old enough to stand up for myself and say something, then my whole family turned their back on me and said, "Who do you think you are? Why do you think that you get to say this?" And now I'm dead to a lot of them. So, um, I almost feel like I've been swimming in the depths of pain for so long and trying to like use that energy and transmute it within myself and then be able to meet other people in their pain that it doesn't even phase me. And most people don't want to swim in those depths. They don't want to hang out there, but I love to hang out there because it's the only thing that feels real. It's the only thing I feel like everybody has pain. And that's probably why the world is so messed up in so many ways. It's very beautiful in other ways, okay? I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but the world and people are so messed up because of their pain and their trauma and their inability to look at it, or the fact that nobody's been there to hold the space for them to do the healing. And so I know I'm not alone in this, obviously, that I am creating the space for people to show up for themselves, to work through the pain that they're working through. And like when she said like, "Oh, I feel like it's a drain on you," actually it lights me up inside to feel like, "Oh, here's this other leaf that I've turned, or this other drop in the ocean that's rippling out." As soon as you're able to transmute an energy within yourself that has been trauma and pain, um, that ripples out in so many different directions. And the more we do this, the more that raises the vibration of the entire world. The healing crisis is necessary to get to that next stage of evolution. And so I'm here for that healing crisis. I'm here for that chaos and that mess because I've always been in it.
Wow. I could feel the chills of, what I felt and I saw when you were speaking was Mary Magdalene. I felt that energy. I know some people might say, what? But, I've heard it's actually a title for that voice, the voice of the feminine. It's like the voice that has been suppressed for thousands of years. And I've been having a lot of conversations when you talk about pain with people about shame. oh, I can't talk about it. And it's like that voice in us has been suppressed for so long, but it's now. I was sharing as well with Jad. I've just come back from a retreat last week, and I had a lot of pain that I went deep into physically. But my God, being held, as you said, and the liberation that comes when you are held and supported. And I loved what you said about, sorry, so that voice is just, I just wanted to say that because I feel that voice is rising in us, and it's like you came for these times, like you're holding a really incredibly important space for people. But can you talk about transmuting? I love that word. I literally, as you said it, was writing it down because I said I need to answer. I was literally going, transmute, the words come out of your mouth because that's what I'm learning. This is what we are. We're master alchemists, really, aren't we? When we
Right.
understand this. So can you talk about, because I mean, everything you said there, I think I felt, and I think all of us do, because we are one, like at one heart, we feel this pain. Like, how did you find your way to transmute this alone? Like, how did you learn this? It's this
Uh,
mastery.
I think it was literally when people started to reach out their hands, like we kind of talked about synchronicity and people coming in at the exact right time. And I remember being like 20 or 21 and being very unhealthy. I think maybe like 90 pounds. I wasn't eating. I was smoking a lot. I, if I was eating, it was like freezer food. Okay. There was no vitality to this food. I looked very unhealthy. I was very unhealthy. I was on antidepressants and anti-anxieties, which have their place, but I was not taking them properly. I was abusing them, and self-medicating. And I remember I was missing all kinds of classes. And one day I realized I'm not actually living life, and life isn't, I don't give life any opportunity to let people in because I'm just trapping myself in my bedroom, smoking all day, staying up all night. And so I decided to go to a stats class. I hated stats. And yet that was the class.
Stats. The stats. Oh, statistics, is it? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. What's a stats class? Yes.
Yeah. And so of all the classes that I was enrolled in that morning, I decided to go to my statistics class. And I sat beside this guy, Dorian. I'll never forget him. He didn't spend much time in my life, but that day, I think he just kind of saw me and felt like I needed something. And he said, "Listen, I want to introduce you to some people if you're open to it." And so that was like the very first hand that I felt like reached out. And after that, it's just been looking for those series of hands, those invitations to that next step, like the people that he introduced me to. I don't know if you remember this, but there was the Occupy Wall Street movement happening in 2012.
Yeah, vaguely. Yes, yes, I do. Yeah, yeah. I didn't know much about it, but yeah.
It was more of a thing in North America.
Hmm.
And at my university, we had like an Occupy movement. And so I didn't know that was happening because I didn't know anything that was happening. And so he invited me to this group. I met these people. They opened my eyes to certain concepts. And then one night I had this dream, which was actually a nightmare at the time, because I was in a long-term committed relationship. And the dream was that my partner was across the street with another woman that he had always told me not to worry about. And I was walking with this very tall man who had dark blue eyes, like all the way around. It was a very strange dream, felt like a nightmare at the time. And then this man walks into my life through the Occupy movement, tall. And that day he was wearing dark blue eyeshadow all around his eyes, like this. Okay, very strange character. Also a lovely character. Don't get me wrong. Um, and so we just like bonded on all kinds of things. It was not romantic in any form at first. It was just like he saw that I was somebody who, was interesting, and clearly he was an interesting character. And so we started to spend time together. And I ended my relationship because of this dream, like because of this person. And so he invited me to go to Boston with him. So essentially, I dropped out of school and ran away to follow this man. who was being hired by Harvard to bring a species of bird to life. Okay. Like I thought this is what I deserve as somebody who's playing God, you know? And in my time with him, he took me to a festival called A Midsummer's Night Dream, and I met a woman who was a card reader, and she took one look at the cards that she laid out, and she looked at me and she said, "You're going to be my student." And I said, "I just dropped out of school and I'm moving to Boston, but like, sure, what do you teach, you know?" And she said, "I teach Reiki." And I'd never heard of Reiki. Sorry, I'd heard of it, but I hadn't really interacted with the concept of it. So I was like, okay, I'll take your card, but like, I'm leaving. And sure enough, I lasted 9 days in Boston. Okay. I did not last a long time. And so I came back to Canada and I didn't really have much going on. So I decided to reach out to this woman. And so I did my Reiki's level 1 and 2 with her. And so it was just kind of like by having these hands put out to me, like, here, come do this with me, come learn this, come meet these people. Those were the stepping stones that pulled me out of that dark place. Um, and, I love my family, but I don't know if they would have ever been capable of that because I think it takes a certain type of person. I think there has to be some kind of like awakeness, some kind of spiritual connection, some kind of higher purpose. And maybe my family was just there to create so much hurt that I needed to go down this path. I feel bad saying that. I have lovely family members, but for the most part, nobody was really there to big me up. They were all there to keep me small. And so over the series of from 2012 on, it's kind of like the Celestine prophecy that we talked about. It's seeing that person that it's like, okay, something about them is like shiny, something about them is calling out to me, and I know I need to connect with them. And just listening to that part of my intuition that said, okay, go here next. And I didn't know why I had to go there next, but sure enough, that's where I met the next person to take me to that next level. Even coming to Ireland, I made no plans for Ireland, okay? I wanted to end up somewhere hot and sunny.
Oh, got that one.
Um,
Worked out so good.
right? But there was a person I was traveling with. He wanted to go to Barcelona. I had already been to Barcelona, so I was like, I'm gonna go to Berlin because I feel like I need to see what Berlin is about. I feel like the kind of punkiness and edginess of Berlin really speaks to something in me, and I want to go see what that's about. And I went and stayed in a hostel called the Heart of Gold, which was themed after Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a book that my dad would have used a lot of the philosophies and like teachings of that book. He would have used that to raise me. Other people are
Mm.
raised by like parents teaching the Bible. I was raised by a parent that taught from The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and
Wow.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And so I stayed in this hostel because it was something shiny that was like, there's a sign, here's this hostel. And that's where
Mm.
I ended up meeting my partner and his band. And then I went on this great adventure with them. And then that's how I ended up in Ireland. And ever since I landed in Ireland, something said to me, I'm home, like there was just this what I found out years later was that I have Irish ancestry. I didn't know that. So maybe it was something in my cells, in my very DNA that was saying, I'm home. I've come back home. Uh, and I feel like I'm just going on this tangent now, but it's all these
No,
people,
it's really important. To hear that. I'm getting so many chills when you say it, and I think it's just when you talk about the work that you do, like all I get the feeling is like it's the embodiment, when we go to someone, if you say like whoever I connect with now or am drawn to is because they embody and live it. It's not, we can all learn things intellectually, but I think we're really at this embodiment. This is what it's about. And like I felt that off you when I met you, and even here that the vulnerability that you can, and I'm not saying like easily go in and out of, but you are so present that you can plumb down to the depths and you feel in the moment, and you can move through it, like, we're having this conversation and you're moving in it. I mean, that's such, I think that's about being in the present, isn't it? That's what it is when you talk about, showing up in your power, is that's always been my dream. When I see you doing it, going, I want to be able to laugh and cry in every moment. I want to be able to move between laughing and crying. I want to be just alive in that moment. And that's what, like, that's what it feels you're demonstrating or living. Like, that's what drew me to you as well, going to you as a client, is like, I want that. Like, I want to feel alive in my life. I don't want to be drowning in pain. Like, I spent a lot of my life like that, but I found it very difficult. I'm blown away by how you describe this. There was obviously something alive and aware and open in you that, like, I want to find a way out, because you took the hand. Sometimes we don't. You know,
Oh, and some people make an entire life of not taking the hands,
yeah. Or
It's like,
maybe not seeing it. And,
right,
and maybe I don't know. I mean, I know everybody's path. There's no right or wrong path. And when I hear you talk about family as well, I think I can only speak for myself, but particularly since I started studying astrology, I can see that I think I handpicked the family. It's almost for the initiations we need to go through. And
amen.
that can sound very, oh yeah, right. You haven't lived my life. But
No, I agree
but
completely. Yeah.
when we can get to that place, it takes time. I couldn't have said that. And I think it often is, isn't it? Maybe the hardest thing, if you look at it at a soul level, that someone who probably loves you so much that I'm going to play that part, and
Right.
you're going to hate me for it, but I'm going to do it for you because, I mean, isn't that, have you got to that place, would you say? It sound like you have.
Yes and no. I mean, like, obviously there's the human part of me that wants to be
Yes.
judged and hold, but I have recently just gone through a big shift energetically of forgiveness. And I feel like there's not enough to be said about forgiveness, and actually for first forgiving yourself and then kind of looking at your parents and then going down from there. And what you don't realize is that, I hope it's okay for me to say, your shit list is a mile long. Um, and yeah, like, there's what we're told, which is that we've chosen all of this, right? Like, we've chosen these contracts. Um, I have decided to go down a path where I can now look at the contracts and edit the contracts, with the journeying and stuff like this. And, I feel like a lot of people could kind of roll their eyes at that and be like, yeah, sure, you can do that. But I've seen it time and time again when I've gone in and ripped up the contract, burned it, or edited it, and those shifts have, like, the changes have happened immediately. Within a few days, my life is completely changing, and these people are leaving my life, or their role in my life is changing because I've looked at these contracts. So I would be a believer in that. I don't know if everybody would believe in
Mm,
everybody's come in to play this role.
mm, mm,
But I do subscribe to the fact that we're all just kind of actors in a play. And when we come to the end, we can see the whole production. We understand why things happened and what had to happen. But sometimes the human side of it's hard to accept
yeah.
that
Oh
those people.
yeah. I can't say I've met. I often listen to. I'll never forget those words. I think it's Pam Gregory, the astrologer, who always says, try and stay on your eagle's perch, which stay on your eagles. So it's like taking when things start to get really messy in the world, in your life, and I know that I'm down in it, like. And then I'm like, oh my God, here I am again, triggered. And I know that's part of it because we are human and we're here to have this experience, but also not to get completely lost, which I did for years. So I try and remember, like, nearly toggle up, you know. And so I know people listening, that may sound a little bit strange, but it's sort of like being the observer, I suppose, a little bit of the experience, rather than being, what is it, being in this world but not of it. It's a lifelong, I suppose, um, journey, literally, in the work that you're doing. So it's really interesting because I know you work in so many different ways with people on their pain. And what is there anything since I last spoke to you in February? Because I know there's new things you're starting and we'll talk about them. But has there been a shift? You mentioned forgiveness. Has there been a shift in the people who are coming to you, or have you noticed something that's been a revelation for you? You're like, wow, this is really coming up now, or anything?
I don't know if there's been a shift in that way because I've been doing this work to some varying degrees for a few years now. And I think it was a very natural progression because as a massage therapist, you're talking to people about their physical pain. So then it's a kind of gateway drug to talking, or not a gateway drug, but like,
Mm,
it's a portal, it's an opening into talking about other types of pain. And the more you learn about the energetic significance of pain, the more their physical pain makes so much more sense. And so it just becomes this like um this growing thing that all stems from the same place. It's not body work and emotional stuff, right? It's all together in the one. And so, actually, probably people have been coming to me and talking to me about their pain and trauma well before I was able to recognize that that was part of the work I was doing.
mm.
Like I thought I was just doing body work 10 years ago, let's say. But actually, what they're coming for is actually, it's more than that. It's like spiritual, it's energetic, it's emotional. But I wasn't, my eyes weren't open to those shades of those colors of therapy, right? Let's say.
Mm.
Um, so I've started doing these journey events, right? And I do them because I want to nurture a community of people that are like-minded because I feel like a lot of the stuff that we talk about, that you and I talk about, that the probably your listeners are open to, it's not something the average person is open to. And they might look at you like you have six heads if you start talking about it, right? Um, I am definitely somebody who touches on people's pain points without even realizing it. And so a lot of people don't like me for that reason, is that I trigger things in them without me even
Ah.
intending to. And it's something that I've had to learn to understand about myself and
What-
accept.
Sorry, can you just explain that? So is it that you see or feel something that you're able to articulate, or how does that come up? You mean just in a public situation or with?
It's hard to nail down exactly
Uh,
how it works, but like, let's say a very microcosm of the macrocosm
mm,
example is that like my partner may have dropped or like accidentally hit his pinky finger with a hammer and never told me, but it happens to be that finger that I decide to like grab and squeeze randomly out of nowhere. We're walking to the shop and I'm talking to him and I grab and squeeze that finger and he's like, ow. Um, but on any other normal day, he wouldn't have pain in that particular place. Um,
mm.
but it's something that I do kind of across the board.
No, that's powerful. Sorry, no, that's so powerful. Yeah. No, 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 but beautifully. No, it is. It from when you started at the beginning, it's like what a what a gift, because to be able, you've gone into such depths of pain in your own life, and it's like you've a radar nearly in a beautiful way for it, but because most of us don't even know how to find and reach our pain, or even know it's there, that often it, and understand then what to do when we do. Like it's like all of your, you can just see how all your life experience has just been moving you into this is, this is what you're gonna do for people. I mean, yeah, they may not love you at the beginning, but they will at the end when they get to their
Yeah.
power.
Well, yeah, and it's all about what they do with that trigger, right?
Mm.
And if they're inviting me to work with them on that trigger is very different than if they have no intention of doing any work around this and they're
Mm.
just like, who is this person that's coming into my life
Mm.
touching these pain points? And they might not even have the language to say touching these pain points, but they're just like, I don't
I
like
don't
this.
like you.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't like you, but I don't like you, you know? And that's
Mm.
been a lot of my life is triggering things in other people and then them lashing out at me because, I've triggered these things. Um, so now I guess I can channel it in a way that
Yeah.
people are ready for that. That's who shows up, right? And
Yes. So
there's
yes, yeah. Yes, that's it. That's it. Sorry, yeah, just when you say that, it's that's a key part of it. If people are ready for it, they show up. And yeah, I felt that with the journey, and I felt it with one of with you've yeah, you maybe talk a little bit more for people who don't know what that is, and I can
yeah.
share a little bit of how that works.
Okay. Well, so it started because I had a prejudice against anybody who called themselves a shaman. Okay, especially if they happen to be a white person. I'm sorry. I would really strongly roll my eyes at that. And what I realized was that I was throwing out the baby with the bathwater with that. And I've had to look at that in a lot of places in my life. I've had to look at it in like, my upbringing in the Catholic Church, and I've had to look at it in all kinds of things. But what I realized was because I'm swallowing this poison or this like anger of people who are unqualified or whatever, calling themselves this title that is a very revered, strong title, that I was throwing out the whole concept of it and judging it. So I saw that there was this workshop weekend of like an introduction to shamanism, and I went literally to challenge myself to see beyond my judgments. And I spent the entire week crying, or the entire weekend crying, because it resonated on such a deep level, and I didn't realize how much of the work I was already doing. And I will never call myself a shaman ever in a million years. At most, I will say a shamanic practitioner, but I, in my right mind, will never say that. And there are so many levels of shamanic work that are transmuting, like that they just permanently transmuting, which like a lot of other therapies, let's say with massage, you could go get if you have lower back pain, you can go get your lower back worked on 2 weeks, every 2 weeks for the next year, and you could still have that lower back pain. But in the shamanic area of work or like the energetic realm, once you start to look at the root problems of these things and, do the work to bring back those pieces of yourself that have triggered that pain, then that pain goes away forever. And so as somebody who's, really familiar with the concept of pain, that's like a miracle drug, to find something that it's like, oh, once you shift that energy, it's shifted for good. I mean, obviously, there's chances that you could do other things that create other problems, right?
Mm.
But what I've found in this work is that it is such a almost like a permanent fix. And that's probably a dangerous thing to say, but it just keeps proving itself to me over and over and over again. And it really sticks with people. Like I think you had even said yourself that it still comes to you what came up in the journey. There's so many journeys that I've done that I don't remember at all, okay? And like they probably did shift certain things, but there are certain ones that they were more real than real life itself. And the changes, the impacts that they've had on my life have rippled out in so many different directions. And so I knew it was like this, there's something here that I want to sink my teeth into a bit more, even if it challenges me to be someone in something that I'm not necessarily comfortable with being or
Mm.
saying that I am. And so I do kind of walk that line of like imposter syndrome and passionate amateur enthusiast believer in the work. Um, and I choose to try to lean into that as much as I can, but I'm still walking there with that imposter syndrome. However, my belief in the work is so much stronger that I still choose to do it, that I still choose to show up and create these spaces so that like-minded people, right now it's just women, can come together and we are able to explore those depths together without becoming like, okay, one thing that I do different in my circles that I think are is different from a lot of circles is that I don't really encourage sharing.
Mm. Yeah.
And I do that so that people can keep their things sacred and private within themselves so that they're able to work on it themselves, but they're also not being distracted by the stories of other people. And once you hear other people's stories, then you're comparing, you're like, you know, a bunch of things come up for that. Whereas this is like we're holding that space for each other. We're doing that work together, side by side. We're not alone in it. But we can do that deep, powerful stuff without having to expose ourselves to total strangers. Uh,
Yeah, I liked that, I must say. I liked that. I mean, sometimes I feel it, but I think what's nice is you opened it up at the end if people do want to share. So there's no pressure, but sometimes you feel like it, sometimes you don't. But I think it's important to, because often if you believe you have to at the beginning, it can affect, how comfortable you feel and how safe you feel. And that's really key, like how deep you can go into it. But I
mm,
also think it's the energetic, like, I really feel that more and more now, and people, the more we become embodied, I think this is another aspect to when you start to heal a lot of your pain, and more of you, as you said, more of you starts to come back. You can then start to trust yourself because you feel it, isn't it? And like I could feel, and I think everybody there felt this is a safe space. I feel it, I know it. Like I trust myself. We're learning to trust ourselves, and then the depths, you can go to those depths knowing that it's safe to do so, and you don't necessarily need to share. I really believe it's so important. Like I've maybe said it a few times on the podcast, and I think so many of us are craving community because so much has changed from the way things used to be. And like you said, sometimes, we're all on different paths, and sometimes you can't find people you can share, and you can do that online and it's beautiful like this, but we need to do it in person too, physically. I'm feeling that now, this draw to be more physical. I used to run from people, I was afraid. Now it's this no, 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 no. This is the next step. This is embodied. I need to be around people I can be myself with. So when I saw your circle, the journey, it was like, oh my God, this is just on every level, I think we're crying out for it. Um, can I just ask with when you say the journey, because I know you've had different themes. So is there always a different theme to each time you'll do one?
yeah, basically, I'm basing it on kind of the time of year, the energies of that time of year, on what's happening in my own life. I think, did you come to the heart chakra one? The heart
I
chakra?
did the second one. Yeah, that's probably why a lot has been happening with my heart too recently.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Heart
So like
opening.
that one, I think I'd done it because I was inspired by it was my 11th anniversary of being hit by a bus. And just like looking at the person I was when that happened and everything that's happened ever since then. And part of my injuries was I cracked my sternum. And so that's like right there at my heart chakra. And then I did a soul retrieval journey. And so I was kind of inspired by the version of myself that was knocked down by that bus and that piece that was left behind there by that trauma, and wanting to reclaim her, like to find her, to tell her that she's safe, that everything's okay, and bring her back in. And that's a big part of the shamanic work, is this understanding that with trauma, whether it's little t trauma or big T trauma, a piece of us gets frozen in time and left behind. And a lot of this work is retrieving that piece, making sure they know they are loved and they're safe and they're, and then bringing them back. So like that was that theme. I guess I could have a more comprehensive schedule. I could go through the entire chakra system, and like the first one is the root, the second one is the sacral, and move through that. I'm a I'm a bit too chaotic for that personally to stay in any kind of structure. And so I just lean into what are the themes. So for instance, the one that I just had was we did the root chakra and we did ancestral healing because this is the time of year where, there's the All Souls Day and the Day of the Dead.
Mm.
And so the ancestor work, it felt very appropriate for this time of year.
That's real fifth dimensional journeying. In the moment, what's alive now,
Yeah.
what's relevant now, what's coming up, that to me, yeah, I think that feels really good. That's the way to do it. It feels.
I mean, like, I'm no astrologer, okay? Like, I wish I was, but I'm not. But it is just kind of that, yeah, that natural resonance. What is resonating right now? What is the energy right now? And also, what is something that's coming up in my therapy, in my sessions with my clients a lot? If people in the last few weeks before leading up to the journey, a lot of people were talking about being ungrounded, and like all the different themes and energies that come up with a root chakra that might be blocked. So it felt very relevant and appropriate at that time. It would have seemed completely like a left turn if I was like, actually, we're going to work on the throat chakra, right?
Mm, yeah. Can I just ask you what you talked about it there a bit, and I don't know if I'm sure many listeners do, but it was a real revelation to me in the last number of months, probably since I did an Access Consciousness Bars session as well with Giada, and I can't really put words on it other than to say that I think we were talking about it earlier. One of the issues that I've had a lot in life is around people pleasing and I suppose not really being in my own power and my own voice and my own truth. And a lot has shifted since then. It really, really has. It's sort of, there's layers and layers. Um, but as that's happening, what I'm noticing, what you said, when you say parts of the soul, they freeze and they is more of me. I'm becoming more embodied. This was totally new territory, really, for me. I mean, I knew about healing and I've done a lot of healing work. Is this, it just doesn't feel like I had no understanding of that. I know parts of us get frozen, but is it the case that aspects in I think the shamanic tradition, just our souls, someone said that to me, fragments of our soul are all over the place and you're sort of bringing them back. So the more
Exactly.
you heal, the more of you comes in, the more of your power, the more of your voice. Like this is the work, isn't it? It really, ultimately,
It is,
is
yeah.
isn't it? In whatever way
Exactly.
you come to it.
Yeah, and it's such powerful work, and especially for people who have like addiction and stuff like this.
Mm.
Addiction is a sign of somebody having a lot of soul loss, a lot of soul fragmentation.
Mm.
And it's amazing the transformations people can make. And I would argue that that is the work, that is what the last 13 years of my life has been, is reclaiming all these pieces of myself.
Me too. I would say big
Right?
most of
Yeah.
my life. Yeah, I didn't even know. If someone, so just to even say, I can remember doing it at my first job, and they were doing something around, were you were you more kinesthetic, were you visual, were you audio? I couldn't relate to any of it. Like I don't know what I am. Like I don't know who's here. And it was just
Yeah.
like there was nothing. It really was. It's shocking now to me, but I couldn't, and I just went, well, I must be that then, and I put myself in this box of, well, I don't really feel anything. I must be logical then. I must be that. Like I don't know, but
You don't know yourself. Yeah.
I
Like completely.
literally
Yeah.
couldn't even find myself.
Yeah.
It's and you notice it more now. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I think this is yeah.
It's like, I think a big part of it is remembering, right? And it's
Mm.
there are whole pieces of myself, ages of myself that I've completely forgotten ever existed. And it wasn't until I found the shamanic work that, I would do a journey to the cave of lost and forgotten things. And I found this little yellow bird and I was like, what's this yellow bird? And then it became Tweety Bird. And then I remembered this 9-year-old version of myself that had Tweety Bird everything. I loved Tweety Bird. And so like, I know it's such a random thing, but I was able to then connect with that 9-year-old version of myself. And all I was doing was sitting on the couch with her in the basement of my old house, watching The Lion King. I was just like hanging out with her, spending quality time. But I completely had forgotten that she existed, and then so I brought her back into the fold, and now she's always there and I can always connect with her. And that's what this work is. And because it's so potent, you don't forget. Like, you don't forget that piece of yourself. Once it's back in, it's like it's just a part of you, even though you might have spent 20, 30 years forgetting that she existed. So it's just, yeah, it's really incredible stuff.
It is incredible. And it's like
Right?
feeling more whole. Yeah, I can't remember. It's like this wholeness, like there's an aspect of me, like as a young child, and that nearly all the time, like she's with me talking about, all I can just see her with everything. I had no memory of her, no memory. There was hardly a photograph of her. Like it's mad. And now I to me it's all of the pain because we started talking about the pain and I was sort of lost in addiction for a good few years, and I always knew. I know Gabor Mate always talks about it that in the realm of hungry ghosts, he wrote that this book. But it's really that pain of separation. I think ultimately, I was like, why am I in such pain? I was in such emotional pain all my life. I couldn't like, what's wrong with me? People are going around functioning, and I'm just like, and it was like having a missing limb or something. And I think it is that what you said. It's just complete soul, utter soul loss. Just when you've no boundaries and you're a people pleaser, and you've no, and so many, I'm sure, who are listening as well can identify that. But nobody tells you this.
And we
This.
didn't have words for it. We didn't
No.
have words to put to it 20, 10, 20, 30 years ago. Whereas now we have the words and people are becoming more aware and they're becoming more mainstream concepts.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I'm so relieved about and happy about is that these next generation of people coming in will have a whole community of people that are informed, trauma informed, and they will have words to put to what these complex feelings are, which we never had, you know, when we were young, when we were children, even like young adults, we didn't have that language and we didn't have adults around us who spoke that language or even wanted to begin to talk about that stuff, right? It was just like, shut up and go to your room. And when you're done crying, then you can talk to me. Uh,
Mhm.
but of course, like, we were never done crying. Like, uh,
Yeah. But
so
yeah.
yeah, it's so beautiful that it is becoming so much more mainstream and people will get kind of will talk to me about like, like, oh, but there's so many people doing this work now. Isn't that like competition? Oh my God, it's so welcome. It's not competition. Like, no, we need more of it. We
Look at
need
the
to
world. Look at
exactly,
the
right?
state of people. Like it's
Yeah.
it is the truth, isn't it? When with all the chaos, and I know we have to go through this and we have to see it, and it's as within, so without, and that can be hard to sort of really embody. What I mean when I say it is, and I found this really hard. Someone was saying to me they did some work with, is it John DeMartini, and it was really about, he's a guy, I can't remember. It was to do with owning the fact that whatever you're seeing in the world in your life is within you because it cannot be out there in your life unless it's inside of you. And this person had gone through an experience, I think it was the previous guest I had on, Judith Kuzel, of being really badly manipulated, controlled, all of these sort of things. And she said, I was up all night. He was working with me to get to until I could see where that lived in me. Like that is, whoa,
Yeah.
that is hard. Is that part of like, because may not be that you're doing what they're doing, but where is control in your life? Like, where are you controlling?
You know how hard it is to reach that level of accountability and responsibility? People can barely take accountability for like, something that they've said on like or a tone that they've had. They'll be like, I never said that. You know,
Mm.
so the complete opposite what you're talking about.
It's another level, really. Yeah.
It's radical accountability and responsibility to look at the world around you that you have no control over or like wars that are happening across oceans to say, what am I doing in my life that's creating this?
Put
It's
together
a very rare
collectively. We are a collective. So, uh,
sure. But
yeah.
it's a rare personality type to want to take that level of accountability and do that kind of work, because like we could very, very easily just scroll through social media
Oh,
and
yeah.
look at
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
of those things within ourselves, right? So yeah.
It's
Uh,
another level, but it's interesting. Just even to give an example, there was something last week where I found myself, and I was pretty doing okay, and sort of, in sort of, yeah, feeling pretty good, and just something drew me in, and I made a comment on something which I know you shouldn't do, and And no, anyways, all this stuff came back, and I was like, oh my God. And then I said, well, okay, where, what led you in the first place to make that comment? You know what I mean? If you
Yeah, yeah,
all was well, you would have just left it alone. But
right.
it did trigger me. And I was, okay, back again. I did
Keyboard
put up a,
warrior.
but
Keyboard warrior.
keyboard warrior a little bit, not less than I would have been. You know, I was never, no, I'm never hugely in that because it makes me feel awful. I just feel awful. So I just go, no, I don't want to be doing that. It just, I think when you trust that sort of energy, but it is, I suppose, but I suppose it's another stage of like the, I suppose what am I trying to get to is what I'm noticing the more of me comes back into my body. This is, then that almost becomes, you cannot ignore that. You know what I mean? That awareness, because more of your soul is coming back and you just know. And your body, your body just starts going, no, 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 we can't be doing that anymore. You got to really show up here, and it becomes more difficult. Like, do you find that? Like, how are you finding it in your world as you're doing this? Because you're changing and look at, all of the new things you're doing. So all of this has been shifting in you as well.
Yeah.
So maybe share some of the gifts and sort of, all the good things. I mean, I know you have been sharing good things because you've really been through it and all these initiations. So, like, where would you say, oh my God, it's been so worth it in my life? Everything that's you've been through.
Okay. Where would I say it's been so worth it? I mean, you know how a lot of people feel like they live in lack because they want all these things and they don't have them. I don't really know what to want next because I feel like I've accomplished so many things of what I want. It's like I have this whole plethora of opportunity open to me and I can just say I want to do this next. Um, but it's not even from a place of need. It's like just an exploration. So I feel like that is a testament to how it's shown up in my life, how all this work has, what it's led to is that I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I need this or I want this. Even like the circles. Once upon a time, I would have said like, I want to do that because I feel like I need community in my life, but I don't feel like I need community in my life because I have community, and like you're a part of that, right? Just this web of people who I can resonate with and connect with on a soul level. I don't have that like lack in within myself that I'm alone anymore, right?
Mm.
Um, sure, there are things that like I should get a car, but do I like
No
like
shoulds.
right, But like
No.
do I need that? Like I don't really feel any need for things from a place of lack. And I feel like that's kind of the measure of success that I feel right now. And it's kind of foreign. Also to be not in a place of survival mode anymore is so foreign. And I went through a little bit of a phase recently where I started to create crisis in my life to be back in that familiar place. And it was Spud, my partner, that pointed it out that he's like, that do you see that you're creating this to put yourself back into that, but you don't have to do that. And he was right.
Wow.
I
Gosh,
didn't
he's very evolved.
he is he's incredibly evolved. Sometimes it's
Wow.
very frustrating how evolved it is, but at the same time, like, have you ever thought to yourself, like, I just wish somebody would tell me what's wrong with me?
Mm.
He's able to do that for me and say it in a loving way. So, it's,
I
yeah,
love you, but you've got lost in that pattern again. You're going
right. Yeah.
down into that old, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to like look at the crisis I was creating and like reel it back, and be like, okay, I don't need to do that. I don't need to pack a backpack and run away because my life is uncomfortable right now. Actually, my life is at the pullback before it launches, and so I need to honor that part of my life instead of running away from it. Uh, and it's
Isn't
that,
it, yeah, isn't it Marianne Williamson said, it's not. what is the words again? It's not that our inadequacy that we fear is our power. She says it more eloquently, but it's basically what we really, what you're describing there almost as it's opening into more and more of what's, oh my God, there's more of this, like it could be more.
Yeah.
There's almost this, no, 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 I better go back. Oh no, that I wouldn't be able to do that or this.
Right.
She said it's our power. It's how powerful when we really, it's like what we've been saying from the beginning, when you really come back into your body, you sort of go through the healing work and the pain and allowing that out, the space comes in for you to come home and go, gosh, that's I can't say I've so much and then like there's layers and layers of this, but I'm getting a taste of that. Like I really as well, I hope for you listening, you can just get a flavor. I think every guest nearly who comes on, I just think it's so exciting for people to share that because it shows you it is possible. I was on my knees so many times in my life, so many times I didn't want to wake up. I'd say, take me off this planet. I get it when people feel like that because I've
Yeah.
been there and I know you can come back from it. I know. And like you're demonstrating that. And then, to be there, isn't there no greater gift to sort of go, well, this is now, and all of your pain, sorry, I know this sounds really corny, but like your pain does have a purpose in the end. Like at times when you're in it, you feel like it doesn't. But the fact that you can come out of it, like you, and go, yeah, that you can come through this and like,
Using it as a catalyst instead of an
yeah.
anchor.
Oh,
Um,
I like that. Using it as a catalyst rather than an anchor.
yeah.
Wow.
It's a paradigm shift that I think everybody has to go through.
Mm,
Maybe not everybody in this lifetime will accomplish that paradigm shift,
yeah.
but once you recognize your pain as fuel for something greater, then nothing can hold you back. The only thing holding you back at that point is yourself if you choose to not
Yeah.
look at that pain and not do the work, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And like,
but
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. It's just even you said how people put out their hand when I was asking you at the beginning, and I'm just thinking if someone is in the depths of something now, I can remember just once or twice literally being on my knee, as you get to that stage of being on your knees and say, just please show me something like even to put out that cry to the universe. It's amazing what a little opening can even come to you, like you said, it could be someone just stops in the street and says something, or that guy that you meet, like we have to initiate, don't we? I think that's we have to, well, nearly get to your knees before we ask, that's why I'm not talking in a religious sense, but just in a sense of recognizing that, you know um that is available to us. We really have to get to that place, don't we? And
And I think also the pain, if it is strong enough, and maybe it has to get to a point where it's screaming at us because we don't listen when it whispers, but maybe it's that thing that will bring us to that space where we are just in ourselves, where we're closing the door, where we are just like so introverted because the pain is so strong that we start to like look at it and talk to ourselves because like really we don't talk to ourselves and interact with ourselves. I remember being 15 years old, just like sitting on my bed with a sea of tissues around me and having this like crippling headache from having cried so much and just being devastated. I don't remember exactly what it was, but like it had something, doesn't matter. And then finally taking out a pen and paper and starting to write to process what was coming out, coming up and coming out. And my promise to myself in that moment that fully shifted that energy for me was I promised myself that I never had to be ordinary. Because up until that point, it was like I had to like be the A student, I had to be the good girl, I had to be all these things for other people. And that part of me broke. Like I snapped, something snapped, and I was like, I can't continue this. And that's why I was so devastated. Um, was because it was just this like inability to, or this like the world's inability to accept me as I was. And then finally I accepted me and said, like, you're allowed to not be ordinary. Like, you're allowed to think different ways and do different things. And like, whatever, if people don't like it and people don't like you, fine. Like, just, within yourself, you have this permission to never be ordinary. And like, I have carried that with me for the rest of my life, this permission to just like, yeah, everybody else gets married and has kids and, whatever, um, drives to work. I'm not doing any of those things. And like, I've given myself full permission to do things the way that feels comfortable to me. And I've been able to grow in that instead of suppressing my spirit because
Mm.
society has dictated you have to finish university, like you have to get the degrees, you have to do these things. Um, I don't remember why I went on this tangent.
No, but isn't that the ultimate act of self-love? As I listen to you and just go, my God, when I had to get to that with cancer, I remember sitting, go, oh, I have to go back to work, this, manage it all, and I literally had my hands on the wheel of the car and I was stopped, and I just remember, like what you said, literally, it's just like, no, so all of that's gone. It's just like surrender. No, no, it can't be that I'm just trying to be whatever, show up in a certain way at work, live a life that wasn't my life to live. Like like you said at the very beginning about, helping people come back into their power rather than being dictated to by systems and society. It's like the ultimate, isn't it, really? Because, it is about coming back and making those decisions for yourself and not, constantly giving. We've been trained to give our power away, you
Oh
know.
yeah. And I think we
That's
we had said it before we pressed record, but like a lot of what the life we lived before was this like normal and not normal, this kind of black and white of like this is how things should be and this is how things shouldn't be. But now there's an acceptance more of this like spectrum of the potential of what it can mean to be human. Um, and I think what you're saying, what I'm saying, is that when we got to that moment of that breaking point, we broke out of that binary, for lack of a better
yeah.
word, and allowed ourselves to like just pour out over the possibility of spectrum and
Yes.
see what happens, you know?
Yes. Oh my God, that to me is like what we're shifting into now, isn't it? We're
Yes.
moving out of duality, polarity into unity consciousness, for want of, which is that space of anything's possible. Like, because you're in the moment, you're just like, okay, I'm here. What's exciting me now? Like, I can remember someone saying, like, what's exciting me? What's exciting me next? That nearly needs to be. And I know sometimes that might sound a bit, oh my God, my life is awful. But, there is a process and, there is but there's always something. There's always something. And as we start, the work that you do, when we start to open. It's like the little bit of space. Sometimes, as you said, things have to get very bad before that can.
Right? And I feel like that, by doing the journey stuff, you are not waiting until it gets that bad. You're giving
Mm,
yourself the space to be quiet, to go inwards. And instead of waiting for something to come up as pain, to come up as crisis, as whatever, to show you, hey, there's stuff to be worked on, by doing the journey work, you are acknowledging there is stuff. There's always stuff to be worked on.
mm, mm.
And now I'm going to give myself this opportunity to sit and be quiet and go inwards
Yeah.
and discover what it is that needs working on, right?
It
Um,
shows up really, doesn't it, in the moment when you're doing it. I think, when you're in the journey, because you brought me to the first or second day, I can't remember. It was the day of my mother's birthday, which is the
yeah,
25th of June, which is around the time of your anniversary, isn't it, of your
it is the day
accident?
of my
Yeah,
anniversary.
yeah. And there was something there, and I wanted to sort of, let's say, cut a sort of a cord with somebody in a situation. And I
Mhm.
actually came out. Actually, something shifted in that. I thought I would have seen them and they weren't there. There was a number of things, but I felt like an elastic band. The way I often see it is like an elastic band, just, um,
Okay.
yeah. So I really like that you're saying that's what other, just before we finish up, I'm sort of
Yeah.
just conscious of the time now. So you're going to be doing more of these journey um circles. Yes.
So
Yeah.
the events, yeah, absolutely. But also, I have a bunch of recordings that I'm going to be putting online so that people can do the work in their own time. I know that
Nice.
the space isn't as held with that, but what I'm putting out there is for people who are already doing the work. It's for people who already understand the concepts. Um, and I know that feels a bit kind of like exclusive, or I don't know what the word is for that, but like that's who I'm interested in, is the people who are ready to take accountability, to look at their shadows, to look at their traumas. Those are the people I want to work with. And so I do the in-person one-on-one, the journey work, the
Yeah.
access bars, all these kinds of energy works that gets in deep. And then there's the circles that like is something I'm going to continue doing. I do think
Brilliant.
at some point it's worth expanding to make it men and women. Um, because I think men also need to be involved in this work. But for now, it's, women, and I love this, like that, the energy of that. I need to get better at promoting these things in myself because
But they're all on your website, are they? Like if I put up
yeah,
your
they
website, you
are.
have
Yeah,
them there. And then you have a mailing
exactly.
list as well, don't you, that people can, or do you?
Once people sign up as a client in some
Yeah,
capacity, they're a part of that. And probably I should have a way that people can join regardless. Well, that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
yeah.
But I
But
have the
it's,
online stuff available to people so that they can do it themselves, especially if they don't live in Galway. Like, you know, actually that's another thing is I'm this next year I plan to start doing retreats so that I can, get a bit more sunshine as I do this work, but also so that we can tap into the energies of other places. Like if we want to go to Egypt to do some of this work, or we want to go to, just like Greece or something like that, to tap into these really cool energy hubs of different energies, depending on the theme of what we're doing. But the idea is to bring people together, to have these conversations, to do this work together, hold the space for each other. And then once they know how to do it, they can go on and do it themselves through with the recordings. So I guess that's my version of like empowering people to do it themselves. That's me still holding their hand, across a screen essentially, and maybe even doing some live events online, even though I have quite an aversion to that. I do think there's a
well, I
place
have
for
an idea. Maybe as
yeah.
this community here develops, I could invite you because I'm going to be doing events, I think, with different guests, to the podcast to go deeper
Awesome.
with them. And maybe one of those could be that you would come and facilitate maybe a journey with the listeners. So,
I would
yeah,
love it. Yeah,
yeah,
that would be
because I
awesome.
think, yeah. So we'll keep your ears peeled. You can, we'll,
Well, yeah.
yeah. I think that would be really be lovely. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think this work is extremely valuable, and that's why I push myself every day to try to put myself out there to talk about it. I have this like, not feeling good enough, that imposter syndrome, to go out in onto the online world and say, "Hey, I'm Giada and this is what I do." But you have helped me today in saying some of that in
Well,
long.
you're inspiring me because each of us doing this, a little bit of a step, going, oh, I don't really feel, because I often assume others are so comfortable doing that. But, in doing this, we're all in sort of inspiring and encouraging. If you just take the step. I always just say, I felt that after cancer, I got this realization I'm only ever shown the next step, and I always wanted to know the sort of end result. It'll all be fine.
Yeah.
And this is exactly where we started talking about whether we like it or not. This is how we're really designed to live, in our fullest potential is here now.
Yeah. What's the energy now? What's the
What's
emotion
the
now?
energy now? What's the energy
Yeah.
now? And you do the when, like, that's sorry, just the work that Giada does for me as well. It's like all of the pain was the reason I could never be present and I didn't understand it. And I was like, how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this? How do I do it? I don't know how to do it. I'm on my own with it. So there cannot be underestimated or overestimated the power of your safe space, a safe container where you're held to release. Isn't that really, it's just I think that's all we ever want, really, is to be seen, to be heard, to be held,
There
It's,
was a couple of things that have really inspired me over the years. One of the things was that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and like
Mm.
it's pushing yourself to take that first step, because it can feel like this insurmountable monolith of a weighted blanket of burden, all this pain that we carry. But if every day we start to chip away and acknowledge this pain within ourselves, then eventually it just gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and then we can feel free to move around, and be something different and grow into something different. But also something else that helped me a long time ago was that who you are now doesn't have to be the same person you are in 15 minutes, 15 seconds. Like
Mm.
you can choose to say, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not the victim anymore. And you can allow that piece of yourself to fade away, and you can step into a person who is taking more accountability, taking more responsibility for yourself. It takes courage to do that, but that is well within your power to do that for yourself. And so it's a lesson I've had to learn many, many times in certain things. But like if I ever wrote a book, let's say, wrote a
Mm.
book, the thing would say that I dedicate it to every version of myself that has had to die so that I can live, right? Like it,
Mm.
we have to be
Mhm.
open to the concept of allowing elements of ourself to die so that we can grow and be reborn and be somebody different. Um, yeah, that's something that inspires me very often. And I think
Oh.
people who struggle with depression and suicidal ideation, very often it is a piece of themselves that they need to let die. They don't have to kill the whole thing. I know, sorry, it's a very heavy thing to say, but like I think very often it's a piece of themselves that they need to let die. It's this piece of themselves that's holding them back so that
Mm.
the rest of them can live. Yeah, very inspired by that.
Yeah, that's beautiful, isn't it? It's like the that part of you maybe that you need that got you to where you are now is no longer needed. They serve that purpose in getting you to be the version that you are. Um, I've just if you won't mind, it's just what you said there. I actually pulled a card. I found these cards called Wild Woman Oracle.
I
They're
love
really
them. Yeah,
nice. And I
very
pulled it.
comforting.
It's sort of to do, well, I sort of is connected to what you said before we started, and it's Branwen of the Starlet Ostara, A New Beginning. Who or what do I need to let go of at this time in order to make way for a new beginning in my life? So it's like, and I seriously had that picked before. It's very hard to see these cards, but they're actually really cool. I like them.
Beautiful. Yeah.
They're very sort of ancient. I won't, there's a whole story, but I'll just read a small piece of what it says.
Yeah.
Branwen and Ostara, the spring equinox remind you that after every death, literal or metaphorical, there is always a new beginning. Although it can be challenging to move on from negative people or situations, it is necessary and healthy to do so. Love yourself enough to walk away from anyone or anything that is not serving your highest good, and trust that fresh growth, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, awaits you in this new cycle.
I don't think it could be more perfect.
No, it couldn't be more perfect. I think it's the perfect way to. And her name means white raven, a bird symbolizing purification and transformation through death. My God.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's perfect. Wow.
I
These
think,
cards are awaken your true, free, and soulful self. I must say they're really nice.
yeah.
Really, really nice.
Yeah, I love it. They're perfect for your
Aren't they?
podcast. Yeah.
Well, it's
And
literally, I'm now picking a card, and I said, oh, I won't get to you say, but just what you said there was like, oh, that's just exactly the card and the
literally,
time of year of what needs to die. So thank you so much, Jada. Is there anything else just before we finish up that you wanted to mention that you didn't get to mention?
that's a very fair question, and I'm sure there is. I will have these recordings up soon. My debate right now is do I have them up now at the end of a 9 cycle, like at the because we're in a 9 year, or do I have them for the following year, which is like a 1 year, right? And letting that energy kind of carry it. So that's the only reason I'm hesitant to put it out just yet. But I'm gonna have it on School, Skool. It's a platform for online education, and so people can do it on their own time, and there will be communities that will be kind of created and nurtured. Um, what else? I will
You were
continue to.
talking about a massage, just for people as well, wasn't it? A massage course for people who want to maybe learn. Is that something you're going to be?
Yeah, I will. I'm creating a course called Basic Needs. So it's teaching people the basics of giving
Nice.
back
Like that name.
yeah, like KNEADS, right? Needs. But for me, the inspiration behind that is teaching people the art of therapeutic touch. And I think it's also very valuable in the space of touch and consent and teaching people that there's ways to interact with, like, let's say your partner in an intimate way that doesn't have to be all the way. And I think that's a really important part of the discussion. I was kind of inspired by this woman saying, my child asked me, Mommy, did you want a boy or a girl? And her response was, I wanted a back massage. Uh, so like teaching people this middle ground of intimacy, and teaching it
Ah,
in a way that's very simple, and it's like the way I'm teaching it is kind of like a scaffolding or a blueprint to what giving a good massage is, what are the principles of giving a good massage, and then people can apply their creativity within that, as opposed to first you do this and then you do this. It's just like, here's how you start a treatment, here's the meat and potatoes of a treatment, here's the end of a treatment, but allowing you to explore the creativity of your of how you think a massage should be within the framework of what I think, of what I've been taught and what I know is the right way to give a massage. So, yeah, that will be available to people as well soon, hopefully. And I plan to also have that available for some of the retreats, is to hold retreats and people can come with their partner, their friend, whoever, and learn the arts of giving a great back massage. And I might teach some
wow.
lymphatic work and some reflexology as well, so that people feel like they can, they have
Yeah.
confidence in their hands.
So they won't necessarily be a professional massage therapist, but you
Yeah,
can use it in your life. Like, yeah, with,
exactly.
yeah. Oh, I like that's
You're
really nice.
taking
Yeah.
care of like an elderly parent or something like this. How can
Yes.
you like
Yes.
take care of them? Because I think I talked to you about it last time. I spent a lot of my younger years feeling helpless to not being able to help the people who I was losing in my life, to cancer and to things like this, that I felt like I couldn't do anything. And so massage has really given me that feeling like no matter what is going on, no matter what state somebody's in, you can always make them feel a little bit better, even if it's just massaging their feet a bit or their hands, can make such a big difference. So there is that online course and then some of the retreat stuff. Essentially, a lot of my stuff is going online, so I can speak to a larger audience and people. It's more accessible because one of the main complaints I get from my clients is, I wanted to get into you 2 months ago and I haven't been able to. So, like,
Yeah.
it's a great problem to have, but it's just a way to spread myself further, and help people more than what I'm doing. One to
Yeah.
one is brilliant, but to be able to
I
spread
think
the
everybody's being called to reach more people now. Like everything is accelerating, and what's I know nothing in one way beats the physical presence, but also what we're seeing through this fifth dimension and the time we're living in is everything is energetic. Like it's taught me that so much. I literally I told you that before with the guest where I come on and I was crying. Like I just felt this. Nobody can tell me that isn't real. That wasn't imagined. That was me in my body feeling like this is the gift of all this work. Clear of the spin. I was here, I could feel it, I knew the truth of it. And when you do this work, you do come to know the truth of who you are and the power of who you are. That is so yeah, the more you can as you said, for those, there'll be people at different stages, but for
Yeah,
those who are ready, there's like waves of, isn't it? That's what I often hear. There's when you mention the competition, no, there's waves and waves and waves of people waking up to who they are. I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
happening through crisis, and that's how it happens. But that's
Unfortunately, but
yeah,
yeah.
unfortunately, as someone said to me that the beings that look down on us are going, those silly humans. There they go again, banging their head off the wall. So unfortunately, I definitely was that many, 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 many. I was going, why did I leave it till I'm like in my 50s? God almighty, I could have done this sooner. But
Yeah, yeah, I
anyways,
think it's the kind
maybe I
of
did in another life.
there you go.
Who
Yeah,
knows?
and
Who
it's also
knows?
the times, right? Like you said, like it's all speeding up now. It's all like happening very quickly, whereas it didn't used to happen so quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's the power of the pain. Sorry, I know I've gone on
Yeah.
longer again, but the work that you do, I suppose to say to people, because I experienced it even last week, something that I thought I couldn't shift. And when I was doing the work with you, it's like, wow, it can happen really fast when you're present with it and you have the right support, can't it? It's I always felt, oh, I'm going to be lost in this forever. You're not. That is not true. You can move through this stuff quite quickly.
Yeah.
It's, can't you? I'm sure you're seeing it, or am I right in saying that's my experience more so than it used to be?
Seeing it, experiencing it, like I every single day people walk into my treatment space as one person and they walk out 10 times later, and like that's not, I'm not trying to put that on me. It's just like the power of these tools that can shift
Mm,
things. And like
mm,
I think there are so many things that do that, and it's all kind of the same thing, but we just call it different names. So like in the psychotherapy umbrella, some therapy called internal family systems
mm,
is essentially soul retrieval work, right?
mm,
It's very shamanic, but to be able to like have that like professional lab coat doctor title on it under psychotherapy, it's called internal family systems.
oh,
Uh, so like if somebody, let's say, isn't open to the woo-woo side of things or like the recognition that what we do is actually quantum physics, if they want a psychotherapist to help them with this, I would recommend finding internal family systems, somebody who does that. Very powerful work, shifts a lot of things very quickly and permanently. But yeah, this work is so powerful, so potent. I feel so honored to be able to have found it and to be able to do it. And I'm also very grateful and honored to everybody who trusts me to do that. And that's one of the most beautiful things is how much my clients and perfect strangers walk into my door just fully ready and waiting or ready to trust me and do the work. So yeah, that's that's where I'm at.
magic. Magic. Thank you so much, Jada. Thank you for being you and going through everything you have in your life to come to who you are now and serving people and serving humanity. So, like showing up so much in your vulnerability and your power and your pain. It's such an inspiration. And it really having been at your journey events, it's testament to you and your work that the numbers of women who showed up shows they wouldn't be coming and they wouldn't be showing up if they hadn't experienced that with you as a client one-on-one. So I can testify to that. It was so powerful. So thank you. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to put all of Jada's contact details in the description box. And yeah, hopefully she may come into the community here that's developing and we might do a journey or something. We shall see how it unfolds. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care for now and until the next time. Bye.